I know you're gonna dig this.
This is Rhine McLin, host of the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center's Funk Chronicles Talk Back, recorded live here at DATV Studios in Dayton, Ohio. And the studio guests today are the MOROCCOS, Ralph J. Harper Jr., drummer, and James Tyree, lead guitar and co-lead vocals. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you today?
Fine, fine.
You know, it's just so exciting when you think about the MOROCCOS. It's probably our first experience of having funk music in Dayton, Ohio. So tell me, Ralph, when was the beginning of the MOROCCOS?
1956. I was a sophomore in high school, and a fellow by the name of Donald Mike Waters, who was just out of the Army, and he was working at the YMCA, 5th Street. And he had a notion to form a band. And from that was the early stages of what was to be known as the Morocco Music Makers, as we were called way back then.
Now, what high school was it?
Basically, it was both. It was Dunbar and Roosevelt. We had kids from Dunbar. We had kids from Roosevelt. From Dunbar, we had Earl McDaniel, James Screech. I think that.
Tyree, help whenever you can.
Dunbar. And Roosevelt, we had me. We had Ronnie Green. Mac Waters was playing bongos. Jack Hart, I'm sorry, back to Dunbar. Jack Hart, the organ player, was from Dunbar, and Melvin Owens, the guitar player, was from Dunbar. And also the lead singer at that time, Alfonso Holmes, was from Dunbar. So primarily we had Dunbar and Roosevelt coming up with a couple on the side. And from there, it wasn't as easy getting started as it sounded because, as I said, I think I was a sophomore in high school, and there were 2 chances that my mother was going to let me play in a band that stayed out, you know, all hours of the night playing in places. Places that she didn't care for me playing in, and it took several trips for them to go in and ask and beg and plead for Mama to let me play, and she finally did. And from that point on, I was with the group.
Now tell me, well, how did you learn to play the drums?
Going back to the 4th grade, there's a if you ever heard the song Sanctuary Band? It's an R&B song, and what's the guy that he has a daughter that's singing now, but I can't think of it. But anyway, way back then we used to have parades, okay, periodically, and you would hear the band coming from blocks away. You know, we lived down on Weekly Street, which was right around the corner from 5 Points, which was where Washington and Germantown split. And on Memorial Day and other days or what have you, where there was a parade back then, we would hear the band coming from far away as probably maybe Summit Street, and you'd hear that bass drum playing, boom, 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 boom. boom, boom, and you'd hear that, and it gets louder as it's closer it's getting to you, what have you. And we would run and watch it, and you know, I listened to the cadence of the drummers, and that was the key with me. And from that point on, you know, that was it. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to play, you know, play the drum. And Mr. Edwards, who was the instrumental elementary instrumental teacher at Willard. He would come certain days in the week and that kind of thing there, what have you. I got started. So got started back in the 4th grade, and from then on, just went on and on and on. And when I left Mr. Edwards, I went down to take lessons at Ballou Drum Shop. And not to brag or anything, but I was, you know, became a very good drummer, especially rudimental. And that's one of the things that I'm disappointed with. A lot of the new kids who are coming along now, they play before they learn how to play. You know, if I said, you know, play me a Radamacue, you know, they'd look at me like I'm crazy. They have no idea what I'm talking about. You know, there are 26 rudiments that govern drumming, unlike a musical instrument that has the scales and that kind of thing there. So the 26 basically is all of, you know, is all of drumming. So from there, it's, you know, the Radamacue, triple Radamacue, drag, paradiddle, whatever, you know, and just went on from there. And from that point on, you know, I just went on and on and on. And in fact, when I was in college, I was in the Ohio University marching band, which was before the 110. The 110 is there, but anyway, I won't go into all that.
But now, Tyree, when did you what high school did you go to?
I went to Chaminade High School.
Oh my, okay.
But as the Moroccos were beginning, I hadn't an inkling about any music whatsoever. I was on my way to Mallory Pool, and I crossed Hudson Field one day. Now this was in about 58 or 59. And this band was playing, and I was mesmerized. I don't think I ever did make it to the swimming pool that day. And it was the Moroccos. And I thought, I want to do that. But I didn't have a guitar, had no music background whatsoever, except, you know, I love to sing. And so I asked my parents for a guitar for Christmas. And in, I think, Christmas of 1960, Mom got me a guitar and a little book to learn how to play the guitar. Well, I could make neither heads nor tails of the guitar or the book. So my mom helped me to figure out the book, how to tune the guitar, and I wanted to play Honky Tonk.
Oh, the Bill Doggett song?
Bill Doggett's Honky Tonk.
All right.
I've been working on that tune for 60 years. It's that difficult. It really should be, well, whenever I was teaching kids, I would show them Honky Tonk. You learn the lead on Honky Tonk, you are learning to play the guitar. Because for one thing, it's not in an easy key. It's in the key of F, which makes you have to spread your hand out quite a bit. But at any rate, I heard the Moroccos, and I was determined that one of these days, I'm going to be in a band. I'm going to be in the Moroccos if I can. Well, it took me about 2 years to actually be a guitar player with anybody. I played in Chaminade's talent show in 1960 and then in 1961. And I knew then, I can do this. I can do this. I graduated in 61 and got together with a couple of guys that had played with Moroccos or were playing, and I just wanted anybody that could show me anything. And got with Mike Foster, who played organ at Roosevelt and piano. And eventually, I got with a group, and that group was called the Egyptians. And we had a battle of the band at Wampler's against the Moroccos. And I'm thinking, oh God, not against them. Because they were so smooth, they were so good. But we were good too. We had our little thing. We figured it was, you pick the best songs, you'll steal the crowd. And so that's what we did. I don't know who thought who was best, but we did put on, it was a good show that night at Wampler's. And I knew then, one of these days, those guys are going to ask me to play with them because I showed out. Oh. And it was sometime later, about 64, that I was asked to play with Morocco's. By then, Morocco's had evolved from that first set of musicians. You know, guys had to go to service, guys had to go to school, finish school and stuff. They were an educated group. You know, Jack Hart graduated college. He graduated, Ralph graduated college. These were intelligent people who weren't just all mouth. And they had some intelligence. They started the group and decided, what we're going to do is we're going to play and put back some money for the kids that are coming on behind us. And they did just that. Some nights the guys would go and play, and they'd only get half the money that should be paid to the guys, because the rest of it went in the bank so that they could build a fund for kids.
Hold on, Jimmy, hold on. That really came a little later, the fund for the kids.
Oh, it did?
Yeah, what happened was when we played, Ronnie's mother was the manager, okay, the Greens, Miss Green. And we had a situation where for in-town gigs, we would get $10, and for out-of-town gigs, which the gross was more, we would get $15. The rest would go in to pay for the things that they had stuck their neck out for, like the organ, like the truck, and some of the instruments, not so much the instruments, but the organ and the truck to keep us going. And so basically that's where most of the money came from. The money for the kids basically came from the third group of the later Morocco's, which when we got back together in about 98, we formed what was called the Morocco's Young Musicians Fund. And the monies that we made from the gigs then, all of it just went in to that. And in fact, right now, there's still $2,700 left in the fund, which I'm going to get rid of it pretty soon. I'll probably give it to Stivers School of the Arts for what it was set out to do for. And I think the union has a youth fund or program or what have you, and we'll give some to them or what have you, and then it'll be gone. But basically,
and I guess when you talk about the young, there was a group called the Young, we're digressing, but there was the group called the Young Serious Musicians that Tumas, he did a lot with those kids.
He
did a fantastic job, and I don't know if that is still in existence or not, but if so, I'm going to put a plug in to say help them. Okay, now let me go back. I want to go back with this history. How many were in the original? Because now from listening to you, and we're going to have to transgress this to, I've heard, the third. So the first Morocco group, how many members were in there?
Better count them as I call them off.
Oh, I got to count?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had 3 saxes. Earl McDaniel, tenor, Tyrone Harris, tenor, and Ronnie Green played alto and baritone. Okay. Then we had guitar, Melvin Owens. We had 2 trumpets, Bobby Lee, Robert Edwards, and what was Curtis Alexander. We had the organ player, and we had the drummer, and that's basically it.
Who was lead singing then?
That was Woo Woo. Woo Woo and Carol Satchel.
Okay, so that's 10.
Okay.
That's 10.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's a lot to pay when you're dealing with a gig. So it wasn't about the money for the most part. It was about playing because we loved to play, and the money that we made, went to buy maybe some clothes or something, that kind of thing there, what have you. But $10 doesn't go a long way, and $15 doesn't go a long way.
Well, back in that day, it did.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. It really did.
I was happy.
But yeah.
So I'm gonna interject here. So the first Morocco, the original Morocco music makers, began in 1959. 56, and went to
probably what, 60,
I'd say 61 anyway, or 62.
Probably beyond that. Probably 60. I'd say after 60. After 66.
Okay, 56
Yeah, I came
through.
out of college and I came back and we played or what have you, and I went to Cleveland, and from 66 on, I think the second group started somewhere around in there.
Okay, because 56 through 66, because during my time in high school, the MOROCCOS were still around. So, so 66 would be about right. 56 to 66, first run, 10 years.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Then, was there a lull before the second came, or did it just stagger into the, because it sounds like you didn't come on, you came in the first generation.
No, I came in actually as the first generation was fading off when he had to go to Cleveland because he had to work. And Jack was, I don't know what Jack was doing at that point in time, but at any rate, they needed to
So you came around.
The band.
You came around 64.
Yes.
So you came during the transition from the first group to the second group. Okay, let's talk about the second group. Who was the second group? Was it still 10 people or was it less?
We had 8 people at that time.
Okay.
We still had Tyrone, excuse me, on the tenor, and sometimes he played alto sax. We still had Curtis Alexander on trumpet, Robert Lee Edwards, we called him Bobby Lee Edwards on trumpet. We had a guy named Smith, Eddie Smith on the organ. Then we had Billy Bell. Real name was William, but we called him Billy Bell. His son is still doing a lot of producing. You've heard of Darren Bell. That's Billy Bell's son. And at any rate,
Darren?
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll go back to that.
Okay, we had Carl Bowens on the drums.
Okay.
And our singer at that time was Calvin Lark. And we had Carol Satchel. And I joined and became one of the singers too. That way we could actually have background singing when someone was up, because by that time Motown was out and they had background singers for every lead singer. So when I joined, I was going to be one of the background singers along with Carol. And when Calvin was up, and he would be a background singer with me as Carol led a song.
So you still had 10?
We had, yeah, it was about 10.
Yeah, you still had.
And Don McWaters was still playing with us. He switched from the bass then to the congas.
Okay.
So he was still with us, so that did bring us back up to 10.
Yeah, so so that's the magic number of 10. Now, how long did the second group stay together?
We went until 69, when, well, the players were going so strong at that time, we would alternate our practices, because Carol and Satchel, of course, were married, and there was one house between their house and mine. We would rehearse in my garage in the evenings. The players would rehearse in Satchel's garage during the day. They would rehearse 8-9 hours. That's the level at which they were. I mean, they were like right there, and we were trying to push to get there. But they're just such wonderful musicians. I loved them all. We were quite close. And but in '69, some other guys got invited to play, and I got invited to go play with a cabaret band, Cliff Bailey's orchestra. So I left the MOROCCOS and went with Cliff Bailey and played with him for almost 30 years.
Yeah, Cliff was very popular around this area for all the dances and things like that.
Right,
so.
And Buddy Webb. I would alternate between those two and playing with Brown, yeah, who we just recently lost, and with Prince Davis, who I really liked Prince because Prince would pay you if you did 2 jobs. If you sang and played, he'd pay you for singing and he'd pay you for playing. Wonderful guy. And in those days, what I did as a singer, mostly I wanted to sing background, but we had some times when we couldn't find our singer, or the singer was tied up with something else, and I would have to do their show too. Well, when you're a musician and you play with a band, You learn their tunes, and then while you're playing, you don't even realize you're mouthing the words while he's singing it. So when the time came that we got to do this, and he's not here, he says, "Okay, I'll do them." And so that's how I got. That's how Cliff decided to hire me, because I was playing and singing. And at that time, there was a guy going around town. His name was BW. He also had a newspaper column.
And you know what his name was? Bernie Walcotty. And he'd sign off. He was on WAVI. And he'd sign off. His signature sign off was, "See you around Dayton." After dark, that is. And BW, it was strange to see a white fella on the west side on 5th Street, up at the Classic, above the ballroom or what have you.
Yes.
Because at that time, I forget what the year would have been, the big band, who was fronting that big band? One of the baddest bands around. It had all of the leading musicians, and these were the older guys. I mean, sure enough musicians.
These guys also played with Count Basie and with Duke
Booty
Ellington.
Woods.
I knew you were going to mention
and they'd play, have a playing on Sunday afternoon above the Classic. And that's when you would see BW, and you know who he was or what have you. But anyway, and it was one of the baddest big bands around. But a lot of folks really don't know, because there was not a whole lot of recording done. Who's the guy that died?
Brown? Dick Brown?
No, not Brown.
Boots?
Elmer. Elmer Sloan was a member of that band, and before Elmer died, I interviewed Elmer, and I got the interview on DVD now, and he talked about the members of that band and what it was like to play in that group, and the musicianship of the musicians who were in that group that he played with were just phenomenal, and you know. Cannonball Adderley had nothing on some of the guys who played in that group, but it was just something. And then, you know, we would play periodically for a cabaret or something above the Classic, and at the intermission we'd go across to the Lumac Hotel and watch not Booty Woods, but Boots Johnson and Joe Arnold. And what was the tenor guy that died, one of the best ever played around there? Bobby Miller. Yeah, Bobby Miller. Catch them doing the intermission, and then, you know, go back and finish our gig and take a break again and go back. And it was, you know, it was just, it was something that happens once in a lifetime. And there's also something that a lot of folks spend a lot of time doing. I can take my hat off to the Ohio players. They put a lot of time in, they climbed, they made it. Satch, their leader, used to sit in sometimes, and he might play some gigs with us, but he was never a member of our of our band. But his wife, Carol, was the lead female singer of the band. So it was, you know, it was a time that you'll go back and you'll remember all your life. But it was also a time when it told me, yeah, that road, the life of a musician is fine, but somebody else can do it. We played, this was 1959, and I was a freshman. I'd gone off to college, Ohio University. And I came home for the weekend, and the band went on the road. And this is the Cox brothers, the drug store people. I think they were promoting, and they were promoting us or what have you. We went on the road to Uniontown, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. We had about three shows in Cincinnati. Aretha Franklin was on that show, on her way up or what have you. But the big problem was the band didn't get paid. When you spend that much time playing, don't get paid, when you're staying in, I won't say substandard hotels, but they definitely were not 5-star, you know, I couldn't wait to get back to school. I could not wait. Anybody who has paid their dues and made it, I take my hat off to them. They played that Chitlin Circuit. Hey, but it's not for me. Earl lived to play music. Earl McDaniel, when Earl left us, Earl went to Louisville and formed his own group. And actually, it was his group that was supposed to replace Otis Redding when he got killed. But something happened to Earl. Rumor has it that maybe somebody slipped him some LSD, and Earl was never the same after that. Never the same. But anyway, those are stories that take place or what have you. But the road is for a lot of folks, but it wasn't for me. Hey, as long as we're playing in Dayton, as long as it's a local gig, hey, it's fine. But if you're talking about a living, no. And Jack Hart, there were 2 chances that Jack was going to go on the road, and that was slim and But anyway, that's, you know, but the MOROCCOS were something that, you know, I was fortunate enough to play with. Learned a lot. And Honky Tonk, hey, that was our song. When the band played Honky Tonk, everybody was up. I mean, everybody was up. And Earl had it note for note.
Absolutely.
Hey, that was our song.
That was how they hired me. I had the guitar part, note for note.
For Tyree.
Yeah, well, you know, the guitar started off.
Yeah, and that was part 1 of Honky Tonk.
Yeah.
The second, part 2, was saxophone lead. And when they'd say honky tonk, I'd start it out. And well, so you do that 4 times. You go through that four measures, and then you got 4 measures where the band starts to join in.
Yeah, when the organ comes in, and the whole, you got 3 saxes playing, you got 2 trumpets playing, you got your guitar back, and hey, that organ is pumping with that Leslie box. Hey, that's, hey, we were better than Bill Doggett.
But, you know, tell me, at the MOROCCOS, did you all do a lot of traveling? Or did you just stay within the radius of the Dayton?
Radius of 100 miles, put it that way. Indianapolis was about as far as we went. We did go down to Screech's hometown in Kentucky. But that might have been maybe 150 miles. That was about as far as we went. But for the most part, the out-of-town places we went to would be Columbus, Richmond, Indiana. In fact, we used to go to Richmond on, what was it, Blue Monday?
And it was
Indianapolis,
Springfield?
Piqua, Springfield.
Oh, yeah.
We stayed in the early years, Springfield, the Center Street Y, that had a lot of shows, talent shows. And we were there all the time. The Center Street Y, the YWCA that we played for, or at, in Columbus. Like I said the...
And you said Piqua, because the Mills brothers are from
Barney's.
Piqua.
Well, Piqua, there was a place up in Piqua called Barney's.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where we played. Barney's was a little cut and shoot place on the river.
Cut and shoot.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, one of those places that my mama wouldn't want me to play in. But anyway, that's, you know, that's where we played. Blue Moon over in Xenia.
I remember the Blue Moon in Xenia, yeah.
We played quite a few things at Central State for them, and basically that's about it.
Now, how many records were actually cut by the MOROCCOS of all 3 generations? And then after you tell me, answer that, well, I want to go to the 1998 MOROCCOS.
Okay. Yeah, because that's where we wound up, we're together. And because...
how many records were cut altogether?
The one that I know is the one that I played on, and that was Wonderful Girl of Mine, the flip side, my one and only, at King Records.
Music Megaton came out after that.
Okay.
That was Woo Woo singing on well, that was mostly instrumental. On the flip side, Woo Woo was singing. They did another one, I can't recall. I've been trying to find a copy of the third one. I know that there were 3 that the original MOROCCOS did. And then the second generation MOROCCOS, we put out one, a record on which Calvin Lark was the lead singer. We named it after a club that was started down there for UD, and it was called Union Depot. And so that's what we named that tune, since the guy who, if you can remember, the guy who owned the Ebony when it was the 77 Sunset Strip, and then it was the Apollo, and I'll call his name in a minute. But and he also had the Broster Hut. Lou Hurricane. Okay. Lou Hurricane was what we, and he sponsored the record that the second generation guys put out. Union Depot, and I can't remember the name of the other side of it, and I had the guitar lead on it, and it's still a tough tune. But at any rate, that was the one that we did in the second generation. And all the guys that were on that were the guys I named before, with Eddie Smith on organ, Billy Bell on bass, McWaters on congas, Carl Bowen on drums. We had the 2 trumpet players, Curtis Alexander and Bobby Lee Edwards.
Jimmy, is that ones that were done at Motown?
No, we did that when we recorded it here. We put it on a label of our own.
Okay.
And so it never really got any play on the radio because we didn't know some of the tricks of the trade. So I've still got the record, still got it on. You can get it on the DVD now, but now I mean the CD now. But oh, we had Tyrone was okay. Playing, and when we got together, we played together, and just a lot of the same places that Ralph mentioned. Going to Springfield, we used to go to Lexington, Kentucky a lot. There were a couple lodges that would hire us. And in Louisville, there were places that would hire us. And when the guys wanted to do more traveling than that, I said, I can't. No, I got a job. I was working at Frigidaire, and I ain't giving that up. And I'm glad I didn't. But at any rate, I did love playing the music. We loved each other. We didn't fight or anything. And if I ever get to talk about the players, I used to love to be there when they were fighting. It wasn't fist fights, but they would argue. They would, like I said, they started at 8 or 9 in the morning, and it'd be 7 or 8 at night when they quit. And they might have spent the entire day doing Jackie Wilson's Higher and Higher. Your love.
Yes.
Yeah, they spent 8 hours on that tune. And when they got done, Jackie would have prayed to let them play that behind him. That's how they could take a song and just make it better. So that was what we had in mind. We're going to do that too. And Billy and I could relate somehow out in outer space. And so we thought we had that kind of thing going. That's why we decided to make a record too. But when it got to be where we're going to do some traveling near the end of the 60s, I said, I'm not traveling, guys. And you know there's a dozen guitarists that can play better than I can. Get one of those guys, and I'm going to go play with a dance band. And so that was the way that went. Then after years of playing with Cliff Bailey and with Buddy Webb and the freelance gigs with, we just called the drummer Dick Brown, and with Prince Davis. If there was a night off, I'd be playing with one of those guys. And then eventually it got to where, hey, this is better than living. You know, we traveled with Cliff, but Cliff would pick everybody up, take us to Toledo, or take us to Middlesboro, Kentucky. That's 300 miles away. And we paid. He always paid, and was never late on paying. He was wonderful to deal with. And then Cliff, as things go, Cliff decided to retire, and then he passed away. We kept the band going, but he passed away. And Jack Hart called me and said, "You want to play with us?" I said, "Man, I always wanted to play with Morocco. I used to be in the Moroccos," and we talked, and he said, "Well, Melvin needs a little help on the guitar sometimes, and Woo Woo needs a little help on the singing. Why don't you join us?" And then it was all of us old guys together again.
Okay, so now, sounding like Tyree, you have actually brought me to my next phase of 1990.
Before you go to the next phase, let me back up just a little bit.
Yes.
Yes, how far did we play? Missed some things. We played once in Akron, and we played once in Oberlin. We played in Oberlin because Jack had gone to school with a girl who was from Oberlin. And the Oberlin thing I remembered because we had a brand new Wurlitzer. We got ready to play, and the Wurlitzer didn't want to play. Now you're talking about your focal point, whole focal point is the organ. Mm-hmm. The organ, and then everything else comes. Now your focal point doesn't play. Now you have to go back and find the piano to get through the gig, because you got 4 hours to play. And you're way up here in Oberlin now. You got no choice. You're talking about a tough time getting through the night. That was one of the things that I will always remember, and that is playing without that organ. When the organ don't play, when you turn it on and it don't say nothing or doesn't say anything, oh geez, it's gonna be a long night, and it was. But anyway, that's those two places we did play.
I bet you still got a standing ovation.
I don't know about that. we threw out a whole bunch of apologies that night, I can tell you that.
Well, before we go on to 1998, tell me three of the highlights of your career so far, and then also tell me, he just told me one. Mm-hmm. One that he'll never forget, that where musicians have to improvise. Mm-hmm. So name two other incidents that you had that were really, sometimes we have incidents that happen that we lived through them and they weren't that significant, but then we have others that happen that truly traumatize us at that moment, and we never forget them, like Oberlin here. Yeah. So I know there's two more, or a third one if you want to do that one, because I always find those stories so fascinating.
Well, for one, is
this a plus or is this a minus?
This is a plus.
Okay.
Now, we played in London, Ohio. And it was at their fairgrounds, and this is going to be fun, and it was. Carol was singing, and Calvin was singing, and I was singing, and we were thumping that place. We had the place really rocking. And there was something that we noticed, that there was either light-skinned people or dark-skinned people, and they didn't sit together. And I'm thinking, what is going on? And well, I thought, oh, okay, London, it's a town where there's a lot of intermarriage and stuff like that. And then we thought, okay, well, this is nice. And then before the night was over, then they were all blended up very nicely. We finished that engagement. I think we were doing a Jackson 5 tune. And we did that tune, and it was thumping. And we finished that tune and said good night to everybody, and they waved at us. And we turned around and unplugged our stuff, started packing up. We looked up again, and that place was totally empty. I never seen, you couldn't flush your toilet and clear a place as quickly as they cleared that place. We wondered, what is going on? We got our stuff packed up, and we got it in the car. We got out in the parking lot. There wasn't a car in the lot. There wasn't anybody hanging around. We thought, we better get in the car and head for home fast, because it scared us. It actually frightened us. We thought, maybe the Klan is going to come. We knew that this was a racially sensitive town, but it was a racially blended town, very much blended, but we thought there's something going on, and it just frightened us. And we had a great gig, but we were scared that night. All 8 of us were scared that night.
Were you ever invited back?
Yes, we were invited back, and for some reason or another, we were busy that night. We were going to play there again a month later, but we had an engagement in Columbus on the same night, so we didn't take that. engagement. They liked us, but we had never seen any place clear out like that. Usually at 2 o'clock you get done and there's people lounging around, you know, just lollygagging around, and we pack up and shake hands with people and get out to the car and hope nobody's going to steal their stuff while we're making a second trip. Nothing like that happened. It just like flush, and everybody was gone. It was really scary.
It must have been. You still remember it.
I still remember that.
Yeah.
I got one. Remember the TV program, The Rising Generation? Well, anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the 60s, WHIO had a youth TV talent show. Mm-hmm. And there was a winner every week. And then at the end of so many weeks, the finalists would come back and play to win, okay? Well, the first time around, we won. The week that we played, we won, okay? Later, when we came back for the finals, we played, and we just knew we were doing it, man. But then there was this little girl who didn't look like us, who had twirled this little baton. She might have been 6 or 7. So we looked at each other and we shook our head, and we knew what was going to happen. And it did. We didn't win. The little 7-year-old won, but it was once again we were on TV and we won. I don't know whether we were playing. We might have been playing honky tonk, but anyway, we won the Rising Generation. We got trophies and that kind of thing there, but we didn't win the final thing. So
the baton twirler won.
The baton twirler won, and you know.
And it was a couple weeks after that, the Egyptians played on the same show, and we won. That's why it was such a big deal that we were going to have a battle of the band with the MOROCCOS. We've been on TV, and they've been on TV. This is going to be at Wampler's on Christmas Eve.
Oh, my.
So that, I was really looking forward to, and it was exceedingly pleasant. It was really good, because the MOROCCOS got up and they were kicking the windows out. I mean, they were just, you know, what they say, blow the roof off the sucker. That's kind of as well. That's how well they were playing. So we had to get up there and try to blow the roof off the sucker again. You know, and it was just a wonderful night.
You see, I remember the Egyptians as well as the MOROCCOS used to play at the Union Hall. Oh. That was down on. I'm trying to think.
There was one at 3rd and Bank.
That's the one.
Oh.
3rd and Bank.
I hated playing in there. I hated playing in there.
Because I lived just a few blocks from there.
I remember that. And I remember that we would go in there and we would dance so hard that we would melt the wax off the floor.
Yeah, because you go in there, you slip and slide. You got ready to leave, you could kick dust up.
And then I do remember why do you like that one?
It was the way it was laid out, the lighting. You just like some things and some things you don't like.
Well, they didn't have a stage for one.
Yeah, they didn't have a stage.
No, you had no stage. You were around the floor with everybody else.
Yeah. So Plumbers Hall, they used to call it, wasn't it?
Yes.
Isn't that Plumbers Hall?
I
think they did. Yes, Plumbers Union Hall, I guess.
Yeah, that's.
But anyway,
it was on.
Bank. So Bank isn't there anymore.
Yep.
No, it's not there.
It's back farther, but it used to be the corner.
Oh yeah. And then so then after we moved from there. After something, and then we moved to the next hot spot was at 3rd and Abbey.
3rd and Abbey, yeah. Right across from Inland. It was Inland's Union Hall, as a matter of fact.
Yes, and so you all played in there. Mm-hmm. I remember that. And then there was one more.
Democrat Club was probably the major one. We probably played the Democrat Club more than we played anywhere.
Now, they had 2 Democratic Club places to play. One was on Broadway.
That was the Voters League.
Yeah, the one on Wilkerson.
The one on Wilkerson, yeah.
That was where we played most. But
you played down there.
Upstairs.
But there was another place, that, I want to say it was a Kroger's on Salem.
Kroger's on sale.
But was a that was used as a dance hall at different times. I think, but I can remember going there dancing. So. And
I have played with a lot of, when I was freelancing in between gigs, we used to play there. I think
because I remember New Birth was there one time at this, and I want to say it was an old Kroger's, but it was like a box building. Before I can see you thinking, Ralph, that's over there by where the over in the area where at the one time it was the employment office.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it was over in that area.
Yeah, close to the Red Feather Building, what we used to call
the Red Feather Building, the Ohio Employment Office, the State Building, right over there became a United Way building and stuff, but it was right behind it, so I don't even think the building's there anymore. But it was, I think it had been a Kroger's or something, and in its transition, it had turned into a dance hall.
You had mentioned New Birth. Earl's brother, Chuck, played guitar. He was a guitarist. Earl McDaniel's brother played with New Birth.
Yeah, he was. Now, I didn't call him Chuck. I don't know.
When we were coming up, I never remembered Chuck. I mean, Chuck, no, not Chuck, Butch.
Okay,
Butch. Yeah, it wasn't Chuck.
Yeah, Butch was younger because he went to school with my wife, who was about 4 years behind me.
Chuck was a year younger than, or a couple of years younger than Earl, and then it was Butch. I remember Chuck playing baseball. Chuck hit the ball out of the park and get thrown out at first base. He was so slow. Playing Class F ball down to Berkeley, but anyway, that's, you know, crazy things that you remember.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So now, I mean, this is all fascinating, and you know, one of the things that you said, and that's why this show is so important, is because when you talked about, and I don't know how many people are left that can remember the classic and that band playing up there with all these notables, and that Dayton has always had so much talent.
And that was the thing about how, you know, we like to talk about how funk came to be and stayed so strong. Count Basie would come and play at the Palace Theater.
Above the Palace was called the Cotton Club.
Right. Well, you know, because the Lomax was the hotel.
Yeah.
That was our one and only really kind of like black hotel.
You know who built that or owned that?
Who?
McFall, Dr. McFall.
Dr. McFall, because his office was down on 5th Street.
I didn't know that. I just knew the Lumac, but it was the hotel first was named McFall Hotel. Then evidently somebody else must have bought it and then changed it over to Lumac.
But Dr. McFall's office, well, of course, a lot of our medical profession was between Germantown and 3rd Street was. So I mean, it's like Cox Drugstore and.
Well, 5th Street was
the Top Hatter.
Owned by Ben Logan, and then.
You know, I always talk about.
Top Hatter was on Germantown next to
the Regal.
Thrifty Drugs. And the Regal was on the other side of Broadway.
But the other thing I wanted to mention, like Ben Logan, people don't realize it. Before we even knew about a McDonald's, Ben Logan was our McDonald's because he had the hamburger places throughout.
Right across the street where I used to live on 5th Street.
Well, he had them throughout the West Side. So. I mean, we have such a rich history that we need to continue it. But now, with all that being said, I want to go back to 1998 and let me know where the MOROCCOS were in 1998 and where you are today.
1998.
This is 3rd generation. This is third evolution of the MOROCCOS. Right. Okay.
4 of the original members, Jack, Ronnie, Melvin, and me. Tyrone was there, but Tyrone had a stroke. Yeah. And he was incapacitated. He would go to our gigs or what have you. But anyway, we began to talk, and what came out of the talk was, let's get back together and let's start playing again. And from that, we added Franklin Woods, who played with the Sidewinders. Okay.
Oh, I remember Sidewinders.
Yeah, and Jimmy, who was with the second group or what have you, and basically that was the second wave of Morocco, or third wave of Moroccos that played. We played, well, when we formed, we talked earlier about the Young Musicians Fund. One of the purposes that we said we would play for would be to provide money for young musicians, for kids who needed money for instruments, repairs, lessons, and to be mentors to these kids coming along or what have you. And basically, that's what we did. A lot of our playing, not a lot, but 3 or 4 years in a row, we played at Riverskate downtown. And for different things, we didn't play as often, but we played enough to keep us in the groove. And to kick it off, we had, I guess, an anniversary, was it 1943, 43rd or 46th, 7th anniversary or what have you, party or picnic over at Ronnie Green's house. And anybody who had ever played with the Moroccos was there. Even the guys who came after me on drums, who lived in Atlanta, they came up for the gig. Carol was there, Connie and Kenny and Connie were there, and we just had a great time. The following year, we had a follow-up picnic, but it wasn't at Ronnie's. Ronnie had enough of having that stuff at his house. And it was at, what's the, Possum Creek. Yeah. Possum Creek. We rented a cabin, and we had a great day out there. We played. Anybody who could play, played. And there's a picture. All of us are in sort of shirts like this, and different ones who didn't have a shirt or what have you, basically were in that picture. Like Holbrook. Holbrook really didn't play with us, but he was in the picture anyway. But, and from that point on, we played up until 2 years ago. When did we stop? The last time we played was for,
wasn't it
it was a friend. Remember the kind of heavy-set woman at Tabernacle who ran some of the cameras or the equipment down front?
Yeah.
Thomas was her name. Okay. She was coordinated a program for senior citizens. Okay. And that was the last time we played. We had played about maybe 3 times. And the last time was at, what's the church? The Methodist church at Salem and Harvard.
Grace.
Grace. We played there. And in fact, we got a good clip of us playing. So that was the last time we played, Jack, Jimmy, and me. But basically, that was it. We played anywhere we could play, and
played nursing homes. We used to go out and
nursing homes.
Are you still doing that?
The nursing.
Are you still playing?
No, there's nobody to play.
Oh.
Everybody's gone. Everybody except me and Jimmy.
And unless the only one still alive.
Unless you want what, 45 or an hour worth of a guitar and drums. But
we've lost so many of our friends.
But there's another problem too. You know, when you're in your 20s and 30s and 40s, carrying the stuff around that we carry around is no problem. When you move toward 50s, 60s, 70s, and heading toward 80, carrying things get to be a problem. Just carrying yourself. I tell folks this. I said, look, by the time, I go over to Jack, I load up my drums. Go over to Jack's, help him load up that organ and Leslie Box and the PA system or what have you. Get to where we're going, unpack, set up. I have to lay down, take a nap before I can play. And now it's even worse. So we were supposed to, you know, David wanted us to bring some instruments here to give some, you know, I got to thinking, I mean, I fell out there trying. So, but, you know, I still play, you know, but it's just, there are two chances that you know, I'd play probably again. It's probably slim and none. But the biggest part is just getting the instruments, getting set up to play. And but once again, you know, it's something we did. It's something we like to do. We love to do it. And you can always look back and say, hey, you know, I remember playing in Cincinnati, backing up Aretha Franklin, man, and we did. Playing here, playing there, playing for the we never did play for the debutante ball because Buddy Webb always got that. You know, the kids wanted us, but the old folks who paid the freight, you know, they wanted Buddy Webb, and Buddy Webb was clued into the money thing there, see. So, but anyway, we played for not the debutante, but there was another charity ball. Played for the charity balls, but we never could get the debutante ball or the potentate and that kind of thing there. But we had our share, and it's something we, you know, it's something we did. It's something we love to do, and it's like they say, there's some things you can't take memories away from you. If you did it, you did it.
You know, gentlemen, I want to tell you, this has been so illuminating. I've enjoyed this this walk down memory lane, and that is why it's so important for us to continue to support the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center. And one of the things that you all talked about so much was helping and mentoring the kids, and that's one of the things as the mission of the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center. So I do need you to, in your words, Tyree, talk about how important it is to support the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center, and then I'm going to ask you the same question, Mr. Harper. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think it's important because the way I started and the way most of the bands around here started was watching each other and learning. I mean, that beat was always a part of it. We all had that beat, and that's how funk music really became funk music. It had that funky beat, and James Brown pushed it. You know, everybody up in Motown had the same kind of a sound. So we supported one another, we had to emulate them or you don't get paid. So we emulate them, and it becomes all tied together. We're tied together, whether it's the MOROCCOS, the Egyptians, Cliff Bailey, Buddy Webb. I mean, I got hired with those guys because I could bring a little bit of the MOROCCOS with me when I played, and then they had the funk sound along with the cabaret sound that was being paid for. And so it was that, we need to keep it tied together, because whether you're talking the Ohio Players, the Fazo, all of these, Roger Troutman and his group, we all watched and worked with one another. So we got to keep that same spirit going, and that same spirit is in the sound in the field of funk music. Thank you.
Ralph?
Well, you know, it's an organization, it's a museum. And you go to museums to look at things that have come and gone, but it's still there. But when you can go there and see what has come about in the city that you live in, it's something you want to make sure it stays there so you can participate in the things that it does, in the learning experience, in the teaching experience. You just mentioned Roger. My first teaching job in Hamilton, Roger was in the 6th grade when I was teaching 5th grade or 4th grade, and Roger was playing then. We have a history. We know where these folks came from. We knew what we had to do in terms of what we did for practice and that kind of stuff there, or what have you. And when you leave something behind, it's something you can go to see what happened way back then, whether it was the Ohio Players, whether it was Heat Wave, whoever it was, or what have you. But the Funk Museum will preserve a legacy of those folks who have come before us and who were with us, who are no longer there, but still leave something behind that we can go to.
I'm going to definitely ask you gentlemen if you walk and find any remnants of anything left from the MOROCCOS, whether it's first, second, or third generation. We would like for you to donate it to the museum at your leisure, but we would like to have that. I want to thank you, Tyree. I want to thank you, Ralph. It's been a pleasure having you on this show. So this is Rhine McLin, host of the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center's award-winning show, Funk Chronicles. Talk back. Until the next time, let's keep it funky.
Jack